Let's start with what Bantu doesn't mean and what it isn't. Bantu doesn't mean people or many people. In fact, we don't have a term that means people in the Proto-Bantu language or the closely derived languages, and I will explain why. But first, let's clear up a few misconceptions. The expression Bantu is not the plural form of the expression Muntu or Mutu, both of which are mistaken to mean one person. That is wrong. In the case of the expression Muntu, the mu prefix implies within or part of. The n sound is a pronoun preposition which signifies belonging or attachment. Tu implies us or we. So Muntu is an expression that implies within or part of us, which strictly speaking doesn't mean one person. That was a misunderstanding by the derived speaking people, and I will explain why they misunderstood the grammar and definitions of the expressions they had adopted. Bantu has never meant people or many people. I will repeat that. Bantu has never meant people or many people. This misunderstanding probably came from the misunderstanding of the meaning of Muntu, which has been misunderstood to mean a person or one person as explained above. Correct Bantu language prefix for one or singular is mo, not mu, and they are not interchangeable, and they have never been interchangeable. Some people have probably heard the mo sound used before in an expression such as Moswana, Monga, Moye, Mombasa, Moze, but most of you call him Moses. The idea that Bantu is a plural of the term Muntu likely came from the misunderstanding and misuse of the Ba prefix, which was commonly used among the Swana-speaking people who were the second contact for Europeans in Southern Africa. The Swana made extensive use of the Ba prefix to legitimize their splinter groups, such as the Bamangwato, Bakwena, Batswana, and also the Shona did with the Vakaranga. This is because the Ba prefix is an invocation used to emphasize formality and not a plural of anything. It is used to add spiritual reverence from our guardian spirits to the root word or base expression which the prefix is attached to. Since the Swanas were the primary source for British understanding of Southern African people, they may have perceived the Swana use of the Ba sound to mean many, but it doesn't mean many, it never has. The correct Bantu language prefix for many is ma, as in Matebele, Matanti, Manansa, Makalahari, Amakosa, Amazulu, Maswana, Makaranga, Mamwenye for you in the East, and that actually means slavers. To understand why Ba isn't plural, it is important to understand how it was used in the Proto-Bantu language, which is the source of all the languages. In the Proto-Bantu language, we call our fathers Vatata. We call our mothers Vama, Vadadi or Vamami for the town kids. We also call our grandparents Vahanene for grandfather and grandmother Vagapa. Notice we are referring to a person as in one person using the Ba prefix. So the logic that Ba is plural fails because the Ba prefix is strictly an invocation to our spiritual guardians to give us the ideal version of the root or base expression we are calling for. Ba is an invocation to our spiritual guardians of whom we are an extension and not a plural of anything. Our language is very spiritual, and the use of Ba as a plural is often found among the people who had no access to the oracles, priests or the Haga, who are the custodians of the Majwi or speech. So the meanings and nuances of the language were lost to the derived language speakers, who were often militant and therefore could not sustain a Haga in their midst, because the Haga only exists where there is peace and harmony, or Muya, otherwise they cannot function. So if Bantu doesn't mean people, what is the word for people? We don't say people because we don't have a word for people. We say sa, which is a synonym for familiars. The Proto-Bantu language is a spiritual language of attraction. Therefore, it is very specific. People is too general of a term and doesn't exist in the standard speech. Sa is also a plural because we believe a person comes with their mizimo, or ancestral spirits. We believe we don't exist on our own, but are part of that chain. So whenever we meet a person, we are also meeting their mizimo. That is how we experience energy shifts when we meet people, because we carry around energy from our ancestors. So we believe a person is the sum of their ancestors, well, mostly their matrilineal ancestors, but that's another deep dive. In Southern Africa, the most famous use of the sa sound is in the South African expression sawona, which loosely translated means you, u, have been seen or revealed, wona, to the familiars, sa. So you have been revealed or seen by the familiars. Prefixing sa with ma isn't commonly used. It is not proper grammar, so we don't say masa, but we do say manansa or musa. This works because it follows the Proto-Bantu grammar rules, but that's another video. The closest expression that would use masa is masarwa, from the Swana, which means those who got caught, in this case stealing. So to use masa, you have to provide context like an adjective. As stated before, the Proto-Bantu language is a manifest language, therefore you have to be specific, and the word people is too general for our language, therefore it does not exist. To describe people, you have to provide their ethnic state or primary activity as the root or base expression to the ma prefix, otherwise it doesn't make sense. The misuse of the expression Bantu to mean many people was applied to all people Europeans perceived as speaking similar languages without regard to their history or how this came about. It was like identifying all English-speaking people across the world today and calling them all English because we all speak English. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Just because we speak a dialect of English doesn't make us English. The same reasoning applies to the expression Bantu. Just because people speak a dialect or version of the Proto-Bantu language doesn't make them Bantu. Bantu is an ethnicity. We are people who call ourselves Bantu. More specifically, Bantu Beni, which means true Bantu. This expression was only used amongst ourselves, Basa, or the familiars, not outsiders. It was never applied to outsiders until the Europeans applied it. Remember, ethnicity is a group of people who originally come from the same place, practice similar culture, and speak similar languages. At its most basic definition, ethnic Bantu are people who value their cattle, have rainmakers, pray on mountains, are non-violent, mine for gold, and they use the expression Mwami for their king. The misunderstanding of the Bantu history led to the misuse of this expression and its application to everyone. In Southern Africa, the Shona and the Swana were usually the primary sources for outsiders attempting to understand Bantu languages and people. But the Swana languages are approximately 4 or 5 degrees removed from the Proto-Bantu language, Utonga, and Shona is even further down, about 7 or 8 degrees. And both experienced an accent change and admixture. They also had some of their meanings modified by those looking to transcribe their language, which resulted in forceful association of certain words to certain concepts, resulting in a loss of depth and original meanings. For example, the Shona language makes high use of the ZY or Z sounds. The ZY sound doesn't exist in the Proto-Bantu language, and the ZI sound denotes absence, but in Shona, it is used to denote greatness or something that is present. One reason for this misuse and misunderstanding is because the Mutapas were invaders, who were probably deliberately misled on the meanings of many words. Hell, the title Mwene Mutapa means master thief or pillager. In Swana, Murimo was taken to mean God by the Europeans who were looking to help the Maswana understand the concept of their God by making it relatable to the Swana language. So they picked a Swana word or expression that they thought had a close association with their definition of God, and that was Murimo. Murimo comes from the Bantu or the Proto-Bantu word or expression Mulimo. Notice the accent change that I mentioned earlier. Murimo is Swana, Mulimo is Utonga, Proto-Bantu. Mulimo is currently taken to mean a great wonderful work, and that was associated with the Waygate now buried under the water in the Kafua Dam. At least that's the belief. Mulimo is an expression applied to the idea of something created of great wonder, but strictly speaking, Mulimo means part of one sound, as in Mu denotes something that is within or part of, Li denotes sound, Mo denotes one thing. And now we get to the spiritual depth of the language. Sound is very important to us, which is why singing is important, and the child who sings before they can coherently speak is considered very intelligent and spiritually connected. Sound is how the way gates were opened and how the departed spiritual energies are helped to navigate to the correct star, not just any star, otherwise they end up in a situation. So you have to have the correct sound. So being part of one sound basically means to be in harmony. I will do a deep dive on Proto-Bantu beliefs. Strictly speaking, there is no word for people, but we prefix the ma sound to the ethnic state or identity of people of interest, and the result implies many of those specific people. For example, again, Manansa, Makalahari, Masupia, Matewele, Maswana, Amankosa, Amazulu, Matonga, Mashona, Makaranga, Magrikwa, Magua, which means white people. We are very specific because we believe in accurately defining everything, and the word people is too general of a term, so we don't have it and don't use it. We believe in being specific to avoid manifesting unwanted situations, so we don't generalize, therefore we don't have a term to mean people or many people. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe for more. And if you have learned something and want to support this channel and the production of these videos, you can contribute to our Ko-fi. The link is in the description box below. Thank you for watching.